Hello, everyone. My name is ShadowRock, and welcome to an interview with Matt Papa from Inti Creates, our special guest. How you doing, Matt?
Hey, ShadowRock, doing pretty good, man. It's Friday, can't complain.
Oh yeah, it's time to get the weekend in order.
Yes, sir.
Yep. So, do you want to start off by introducing yourself a bit and tell us what you do at Inti Creates?
Sure. I do a lot of things here, but I would say, I guess the main things I do is I'm a producer and I'm the head of our localization operation here. I sometimes jokingly call myself the Kai guy, which Kai guy means overseas in Japanese. So I handle a lot of our kind of general overseas affairs, be it, of course, producing our English versions, uh, you know, being in charge of the localization of said English versions, doing stuff like, you know, reaching out to media, running our social media, uh, doing all that kind of stuff. In charge of like our PR and marketing for the West. Oh, I do a lot of stuff. But yeah, those are the main things that I do. Been here for just a titch over 5 years now, which is kind of crazy to say out loud, but yeah, wow, time
That's
flies. Holy
awesome.
crap.
And the Gunvolt series is 5 years old as well, so that's
Yes, it
awesome.
is. I joined the company 3 weeks after GV1 came out. Yeah, sounds about right.
Oh man.
I downloaded GV1 as a fan, and then 3 weeks later I was working here. So that's
Yeah, that's crazy.
yeah, wild.
Speaking of, how did you end up getting a job at Inti Creates, and what was your first project with them?
So there's a I could spend 20 minutes telling you how I got this job, but I'll give you the short and sweet version.
Sure.
Through a long series of events, which begun back at New York Comic Con 2010, uh, with meeting Keiji Inafune back there at New York Comic
Ooh.
Con 2010. From there, through a very long series of events, I was led to connect with a guy named Takuya Aizu, and who you may know as our CEO and my now boss.
The man of the hour.
And so through a long chain of events, I got basically made contacts with this guy, and I had come back to Japan in early 2014. Not to work for Inti Creates, just on my own terms. Yeah, I
Hmm.
came back. I had lived here previously. I had like studied here in college, and I had like taught English for a year here after I graduated. So I had lived in Japan before that, and decided to come back. I was working some other, jobs when I first got here. I was like, man, I really don't want to do this job. And one day I just had a really crappy day at work, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna take a shot in the dark and see what happens. And I literally reached out to Aizu. I was like, hey, I know we've really never met, but is your company hiring by any chance? And you know, explain the whole situation. And turns out they were looking for someone like me, and came in and interviewed for the job, and that's all she wrote. Been here for 5 years now. So the first game I had worked on that had my name in the credits was Mighty Gunvolt. Yeah, Mighty Gunvolt. Sorry, I almost said Burst, but no, it's Mighty Gunvolt, like the original one.
Oh
That was
wow.
the first. That was the first game that had my name in the credits, and the first title like I really worked on in earnest was the PC version of Gunvolt One, um, when we did the as we called it at the time, Japanese voice mode, which was essentially, as some of you seasoned GV heads may know, the original release of Gunvolt 1 on the 3DS had some missing content.
Right.
Uh, like the mid-stage dialogues that were so famous in the series were removed, and there was just some other stuff that wasn't done for various reasons. And as I was starting my job and trying to, get in touch with fans and figure out what they were happy about, what they were not happy about. One of the things I realized that people were really clamoring for was to basically have the Japanese and English versions of the game be the same. We wanted to
Hmm.
have the same content in both. So I pushed internally for that really hard, and decided, basically, well, if there's the only way I could feasibly get this done, is I'd have to retranslate the game from the ground up, because you don't want to just like add stuff to someone else's work. We didn't really have the availability at the time to work with 8.4 again, the people who originally translated Gunvolt 1. So rather than dissect someone else's work, and which I would never want to do, I would rather just do it again from the ground up and basically have two separate versions. So that's, and then the one with the voice mode ended up being the I guess the mainstay translation for GV1 at the end of the day.
I really appreciate the work you did for retranslating Gunvolt 1. I think the series overall was better for it.
Yeah, it was fun. It was honestly a really great project to cut my teeth on. I worked. I did that by myself. It was the first thing I ever localized in my life. So I look back on it now and see so many things I would totally tweak and change now. But I was pretty happy with it, especially at the time.
Yeah, I know the fans were very happy with it as well, considering the A4 translation. But yeah, that's another story.
No, like I do not knock what they did at all. I think they did a good job, and when you have as a localizer, when you have, depending on the restrictions you have in place, you are able to act more freely. So like when you don't have things like a voice, like voices to match it up with, you can be a lot more free in your translation. And a lot of games in the past were like this. And if you never played the Japanese version, you would have never know that this may be a little different here or there. So when you don't have restrictions, you have a lot more creative freedom to do what you want. And games, even to this day, games are still done in that way, and I don't think that's inherently a bad thing at all. But for me, and just seemed to be especially what the GV fans seemed to want. They wanted something that was a bit closer to the source material, more like a one-for-one type of thing. So you have, as a localizer, you have to balance. It is localization, not translation. So that's a very key difference.
That is true. And we were talking about how listening to feedback of the fans is important. And I've seen you on Twitter talking about how you love seeing the fans getting hyped and
absolutely,
hyped in a buzz for Luminous Avenger X. And
absolutely, man.
Just seeing all the people talk about it, watching media coverage, the reviews, seeing like your own game on sale in the store. How does that all make you feel?
Pretty damn good. Yeah, man. No, it's true. Like you never really, I grew up as I had a controller in my hand since I was 3 years old. When we got an NES that Christmas, and I've been, games have been at the forefront of my life ever since. So, growing up as a kid in a Philadelphia suburb in New Jersey, you don't really envision yourself, working alongside all those names I couldn't pronounce as a kid who made all these amazing games that I love. And, I never saw myself, growing up, working on video games. That always seemed kind of like a pipe dream. So especially for someone like me, who, I guess through, making my own luck, I guess, so to speak, and fortunately deciding to study Japanese, I was able to land, this job that I do have now. But it's always really exciting, especially there's especially something really cool about seeing like you said, like seeing like a physical copy on a shelf, or something like a limited run games that we've done with them, and seeing just being able to hold that thing in your hands is really, really cool. But as far as the fans go, I mean, when I started off here at Inti Creates, we didn't really have much of a Western. We didn't really have much connection with any Western fans or media or anything like that. So I basically built this whole operation up from that time, and just seeing, the numbers of people who play and enjoy Gunvolt grow over time. It's just like, you feel like you're making a positive impact on people's lives, and that for me is like when I see people get, really excited for our next game. That isn't like, oh yeah, I'm awesome. I'm just like, yeah, I can like this thing I'm working on is making all these people happy, and that just kind of rules. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. It's like the greatest thing we can do as like content creators or
No, it's
game
true.
makers. Yeah, it's making people happy.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I mean, and you're a content creator. You know what it's like. It's the same
Mm-hmm.
thing. You know,
Yep.
it could be a game, a movie, a piece of art. It doesn't matter. Just
Yeah.
being able to create something, take it from your brain, put it into something that people can enjoy. It's really cool.
Oh, it's amazing. And on to the next question then.
Yeah.
Do you actually have any advice for anyone that wants to get into game design or localization?
Um, Game design, I have admittedly less experience with. I have game design ideas, but nothing that's ever been made at this point. Hopefully one day. Um, but especially for localization and things like that, obviously I think it goes without saying. The first thing is to learn whatever language you're trying to work with. I guess for a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people in this who would be listening to this interview would probably be Japanese, or what it could be other languages too. Video games nowadays are localized into tons of different languages now. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just Japanese anymore. It's uh, you know going from English to French, German, Spanish, Italian, Chinese, Korean, Thai, Russian, Portuguese, all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot more work for localization professionals than I think there ever has been. Um, but if you want to do something like what I'm doing, either work in Japan or work with a Japanese company, learn Japanese however you can. That's could be 10 different ways for 10 different people, but obviously learn Japanese. And if you want to get a job in the industry, one of the biggest lessons that I learned is, make yourself known, make connections, build meaningful relationships with people in the industry who are doing the job you want. This is a very competitive industry.
Mm-hmm.
It's growing all the time, which is amazing. But there's a lot of people who want to work in video games. And so you got to find a way to stand out from the crowd, so to speak. And, one of the best ways that I've managed to accomplish that over the years is building, connections and meaningful relationships with people so that when the time comes for that you may find an opportunity that you meet the eligibility requirements for,
Mm-hmm.
Submits his application and think, oh man, that ShadowRock dude's awesome. I know him. He's legit. That really goes, helps you stand out from some random person who sent in an application. So
Exactly.
study that Japanese, make connections, go to events and meet people doing these jobs. That's how I did it. And if it can work for me, it could definitely work for any other capable person out there. That's for sure.
Yep. I think that's definitely a key role for like any industry, really. Like I know I went to film school, and that's one of the things people will tell me is you need to network with people, and you need to get to know
Yep.
people.
Network, network, network. And if you think you're
Mm-hmm.
done networking, network more.
Yep, that's for sure. So let's actually get into some Inti Creates related questions then.
Yeah, man.
So Inti has been on a roll this year with porting a lot of games, including
Yes.
like Mighty Gumball Burst, Blaster Master Zero One. Of course, people keep asking me, I know that's for sure, about other games coming to Steam or other platforms like Gunvolt 2, Dragon Mark for Death, or Blaster Master Zero 2. Well, what are the chances of those happening?
Well, as I said before, we are definitely not done with our PC releases. We really, we told people early on that, we are committed to porting more of our library to PC. And we are by no means done with that. Especially now that Ix is out in the ether. We got PC players have gotten 3 new Steam releases in less than half a year. So I think that's
Yeah.
a pretty good. That's a pretty good pace so far. With Burst and BMZ1 and now Ix. But like you said, stuff like GV2, BMZ2, Dragon. There's definitely more stuff in the pipeline. I can't
Right.
say something, oh, this is coming this day, surprise announcement, but all that, what I can promise you is that we are not done with our PC releases. So for you PC peeps out there, definitely stay tuned because we are not done.
Yeah, and speaking of Luminous Avenger X, now that it is out, could you talk just a little bit about like what Inti Creates plans to do next in terms of like maybe DLC ports, like we just talked about, or even like Gunvolt 3 or something new?
Well, Gunvolt 3, we did assure fans that Gunvolt 3 is happening at our Anime Expo panel. We did promise that Gunvolt 3 is happening. But yeah, see, now the Gunvolt series is basically divided up into, basically has two lines now. It's got the main line, GV1, GV2, GV3 line, which is directed by Suda-san. And when when Suda's brain gives him the ideas that will bring GV3 to life, that's when GV3 will happen. So that's really all, that's his baby, that's his brainchild. So we'll just have to see what Suda comes up with and when. And what was the other part? I'm sorry, I lost the other part.
It's just like if there's anything like you're planning for like DLC ports.
Right. Sorry about that. Yeah. So and then X, the game just came out, so we'll have to see how it goes. I think the first order of business for that is to get the Xbox One version out. We had originally had that slated for same day as the others, but as we said on Twitter, a game-breaking bug was discovered, and we could not, in good faith, release it with with that in place. We definitely apologize to Xbox users for that. It's unfortunate, but we would rather have it fixed and released a proper product for you guys to enjoy, albeit late, than release something that could just be a hot mess. So I think first order of business is getting that out, and then we'll kind of take things from there. Things are everything I can't confirm or deny. Stuff like, oh yeah, we'll definitely have DLC or this or that, but it's definitely possible. So we'll have to see what happens once the Xbox version's out, and then we can kind of assess the situation and kind of take things from there.
Yeah, it's a bummer about the Xbox version, but sometimes you gotta make those calls.
It happens. Yeah, it happens. Like I said, we couldn't in good faith release it, knowing that version had this, super problematic bug. So we would rather, take the heat, fix it, do it right, and, call it a day.
That's for sure. So, I guess it's more of a personal question, but if you could take any gaming franchise, disregarding copyright or budget constraints, and just give it the old Inti Creates dazzle, which one would it be and why?
Well, if I, Matt Papa, got to decide this on my own and had to consult with no one else, that would be, without a doubt, Final Fantasy Tactics.
Oh, baby.
No question about it. That is my very close. It is an extremely close second to being my favorite game of all time. I love tactical RPGs. I'm currently like knee deep in Fire Emblem Three Houses that I'm loving too. I love the story. I love the job system. I love everything about that game, and I would love to be able to take the reins and develop a Final Fantasy Tactics game like that. I think that would be the coolest freaking thing. A lot of work, but really cool.
Yeah, I think if you ever did get landed up a project like that, I think Inti Creates could do it well.
I think we could too. I think so. Yeah.
As for games you've already worked on, which was the one that you had the most fun with?
That would have to be Galgun Double Piece.
Oh dear.
Galgun Double Piece, and because that was a crazy release. Just because this is Galgun was a series that people never thought would ever come to the West. I pushed very hard internally for that to happen. So you can blame me for Galgun getting a Western release. It is literally all my fault, and I take full credit for that. And Galgun Double Peace was the first game I produced. It was, I pretty much more or less localized that entire game myself too. So like that's the biggest solo project I ever did. So it's kind of like my magnum opus, I guess you could say. And I'm totally cool with that. And just, the marketing and just the promotion behind Galgun is so much fun because you just get to be, a cheeky little bugger. I'll keep this PG-13. You can just be a cheeky little bugger with your promotion and marketing and stuff. Getting, working with, our publisher PCube. On like the special editions and stuff like that, putting in our quote unquote screen cleaner, in the special edition and all that kind of stuff. It's just it's a blast to market. It's we had some, the reactions of like YouTubers at the time. A lot of big, gaming channels picked it up and played it. So getting people like like Game Grumps and stuff like that playing something like Galgun's always a treat, and just everything about and then localizing that kind of content is just so much fun because you get to be really and there's like dozens of different characters, each with their own personalities, so you get to have a lot of fun and be silly with it. And I'm not a super serious edgy kind of guy, so Galgun, the silliness of Galgun is definitely more of my energy.
Yeah, it's definitely silly and a lot of fun. I remember that screen cleaner thing too. That was brilliant.
Thanks. That was me and my partner in crime over at PCube's little brainchild.
Yeah, that was awesome. So, another question. What is the toughest moment you've encountered while working at Inti Creates, and how did you get through said obstacle?
Good question. I'm trying to think of one particular thing that stands out. Sometimes you get, game development. Don't let anyone ever try to tell you that game development is easy.
Oh, absolutely.
It is not. A lot of tons and tons and tons of work goes in, more than I ever imagined. Before I actually, I thought I knew a lot about games and how they're made, and then I joined a game company. I'm like, oh wow, I didn't know anything. You learn a lot, and sometimes there's stuff like some deadlines can be really harsh, and you really have to kind of just summon up some strength that you didn't know you had to push through. And I don't believe in crunch. I think it's a thing that should not happen. But sometimes you do have to you really just hunker down, and sometimes you may have to stay late sometimes and get the job done. But if I had to pick one incident that I just stick out, definitely in the earlier times when I wasn't as experienced, so these things tend to be more impactful, I guess, so to speak. Right. I remember when GV for Steam came out, there was we were at PAX West, and we announced that we were doing a panel. I was literally on a panel with Aizu and Inafune and a couple other guys at PAX West. We were doing a panel, and we had literally said there, we talked about Gunvolt and Steam, and it's available now, yay, woo! Had a big hurrah, super fun. Leave the panel, I'm feeling good, oh yeah, this was awesome, great panel. And I'm looking on Steam, and I'm looking on Twitter, and it's a dumpster fire.
Oh no.
Because basically the game was not working with pretty much anybody who had a AMD graphics card.
Oh. I might remember something like that.
Yeah, so coming off this big high, just doing this awesome panel, with guys like Inafune and Aizu, we do this awesome panel. Panel went great, feeling super good. He's like, oh, it's PC version's out. Yes, it's great. I'm just gonna check. Oh no. You just feel like your heart sink, like, oh, crap, you know. Uh,
Yeah.
so you're making tons of emergency calls back to the office and trying to get this fixed, and just dealing with all the, people like, well, this game doesn't work, not recommended, you know.
Oh.
Your Steam ratings, take a huge hit, and
Right.
just all this bad press goes around on social media. Like, oh, this game is garbage, it doesn't work, blah blah blah. It's when you're at the forefront of that, keep in mind, I am the window for which all of those things come through.
Mm-hmm.
I like I said, I'm our social media guy. I'm the one who's really at the forefront of all that. So,
Right.
just seeing all the anger and disappointment and, all the frustration and people just like, crapping all over the game and all that stuff. It's just like, that was the first time I really had an issue that big that I had to deal with. So that one really kind of sticks out. And, you just kind of, like you said, you have to, soldier on and, steel yourself and,
Right.
just gonna get the job done, but it does suck, just, when those things happen, but that's game dev.
Oh yes. Yeah. I may not be a game dev, but I do relate with you about how sometimes on the internet people don't send very nice things all the time.
Oh no, people can be truly awful sometimes.
Oh yes. I think definitely one of the biggest things about being online is you gotta have rough skin, steel yourself.
Oh no, you do. You absolutely do.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten better at that over time, but definitely in the beginning, when you're not used to that, and you just get those floods of negativity, it's hard.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It's tough.
So then, changing gears a little bit. So Inti Creates is well known for their amazing 2D sprite-based games. I'd say you guys' pixel art is probably the best in the business.
Well, thanks.
Thank you. You're welcome. I don't know why I said thank you, but but have you actually considered trying more 3D game development beyond Galgun or Mighty Number 9?
I'm sure the team has thought about it. This wouldn't be something that I'm, conversations that I'm directly involved with.
Mm-hmm.
But we're working on and thinking of new projects all the time. I know it's kind of, Galgun 2 was our last real 3D game, so I know it's been a hot minute. But I am sure the team's thought about it. But like you said, 2D work is definitely more of our bread and butter and what we're known for.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure the team, if the situation is right, I'm sure they would consider it. But unfortunately, that's not really something I have too much direct knowledge of.
That's all right. Here's another thing. We're going to switch gears to the Mega Man series, which Inti Creates is known for working on the Mega Man 0 and ZX series. And when Capcom revealed that they're working on the 0 and ZX Legacy Collection. And
yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. And people just want to know if Inti Creates is at all involved with this project. And if not, do you have anything you want to share regarding 0 and ZX just being back in the spotlight again?
I mean, we're not involved with it. I mean, like, when you do like contract work, like that kind of stuff, when you basically, we develop the game, and big companies do this all the time. They'll have smaller studios develop the game, but they still, at the end of the day, the publisher or the IP holder still owns all the rights and all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
So, while we did develop all those games, we don't own them in any way. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I mean, that is, Capcom's IP to do with as they please. So we have really no need to be involved with that. But when I do think it's very cool that the 0 and ZX games are back in the spotlight. Just as a I'm not talking as an employee here, just someone who enjoys those games. And
Mm-hmm.
The reason I know about Inti Creates is because of Mega Man 0. So
Right.
so I just think it's really cool for them to, again, kind of have new life breathed into them. And have especially the ZX games, who haven't really seen the light of day since their DS releases, be able to be played on a modern system again. So that's just just speaking as someone who loves those games. I think it's really cool that they're they're back in the spotlight, and it'd be just cool to have people be able to play those games again.
Yeah, hopefully people pick it up and it leads to more things in the future.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I'm glad Torio Nakayama is back doing some artwork for the collection, though. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. And as you may know, Nakayama-san, he's the artist for Dragon Mark for Death as well.
Right.
So it's been cool to have a bunch of new Nakayama art from that too.
Yeah, he does a really good job. I like his artwork.
Yes, he does.
Speaking of the future, let's just say in a what-if scenario, if Capcom said, hey, do you want to make a Mega Man ZX3 or some other Mega Man game, would you do it?
Well, I mean, I can't say yes or no to that, but I mean, I'm sure that's definitely a conversation we would listen to. If they wanted to have it, but can't make any other promises beyond that. I'm sure we'd listen, but other than that, we'd have to see what happens.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, that's pretty much it for Mega Man. So let's talk about your bread and butter, the Gunvolt series.
All right.
So Gunvolt's been out for 5 years now. It's pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah, tell me about it. Feeling a little old over here.
Yeah, right. Do you want to share any anniversary celebratory comments or just how you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just damn, 5 years has gone by really fast, and it's again something when I first played GV, I never thought it would be such a part of my life the way it is now. It's just been Gunvolt is essentially our flagship IP, and so it's been a real treat to see the fan base grow over the years, and just how many lives this game has touched. And I've talked to both Western fans and Japanese fans, just sharing their experiences with the series, and how some of the cool stuff I've heard is because of Gunvolt I was able to make friends with somebody from the other side of the world over this. And I was like, man, that's cool. It's like, that there's a lot of fan bases that have, it's kind of like the Japanese fan base and the English speaking fan base. And I think, for Gunvolt, it's kind of really cool how often those fan bases come together and communicate with each other. So I think that's super cool. It's just nice to be able to see, like I said, our flagship IP continue to grow and turn into something that fans are continuing to enjoy after 5 years. And, I hope that same love and more is there when, GV3 eventually finds its way onto, digital storefronts and hopefully maybe shelves. But yeah, it's just been a super awesome ride. The Gunvolt fan base has been amazing. And, I'm looking forward to, continuing to interact with you guys and, help share that GV love.
Oh, yes. That's one thing I do have to say about the Gunvolt franchise is just how passionate the community is.
Yes.
I know, personally, me, when I was covering Luminous Avenger X, I was looking for someone who was translating some of the Japanese dialogue because I don't know any Japanese. So, I contacted the guy who runs the Gunvolt wiki. It's like, hey, do you have any translation? He's like, oh yeah, I already have them. Come over and let me show you them. It's like, I just love how the Gunvolt fans are always on all the latest news and theories and everything, and just how helpful they've been to each other. It's amazing.
Yeah,
to see.
It's great. I definitely am aware of that stuff, and I think it's super cool.
Yeah. So moving on over to the future of Gunvolt a little bit. Could we expect Gunvolt 1 and 2 making its way to PS4 and Xbox One?
I certainly hope so. Again, I can neither confirm or deny that at this point, but I certainly hope so. I would love to, especially now that X is on those platforms. I think it'd be really cool if we could. But as any other thing goes, I think one thing that, fans have to remember sometimes is that we are a small company. Mm-hmm. And we're always working on multiple projects at once. So, and ports contrary to what some people may think, do take a lot of time.
Right.
If you want to do them right. And so, we only have so many hands, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I would love to be able to say, oh yeah, just here's ports for everything. As cool as that would be, it's not always feasible to do that in either at all or in a, quick and timely fashion. So while I personally would hope we can do that, I cannot make any promises, but I will definitely be pushing for that for sure.
Awesome. So, talking about the Gunvolt series and what Inti Creates has done in the past with Mega Man Zero and ZX, a lot of the bosses in those games are very interactive, active. They just keep you on your toes all the time. There's attacks everywhere over the screen, and it's a lot to keep up with sometimes. But how does Inti Creates approach boss design?
Well, I mean, I think the best thing I could say is, again, that's as cool as it would be to design bosses. That's not something I'm directly involved with. Right. But we have, as you mentioned, it goes back to the Zero games, and we definitely have a lot of people here who either have been around since those days, or have come to join our company because of their love for those games. So I think it's it's really hard for me to say as someone who doesn't do that personally, but the love for our previous titles is very much there, and I think we definitely are always learning from our older titles and applying that experience into our new one. So I definitely think there's some merit to what you're saying, but as to the ins and outs of boss design, I wish I had more insight to give you on that.
It's perfectly okay. But I know you work on the Gunvolt localization, so this will probably be something you could this will probably be something you can answer. What are some of the thoughts that go through your head when you do localization changes for like Pantera to Zonda, or some of the special attacks that were already in English but you kind of retranslated them for the English game?
So for stuff like names, like say Pantera to Zonda, or Acura to Copen, stuff like that. That was done by the original localization team at 8.4. They're the ones who made those changes. However, even if I was doing it from the beginning, I would also change those names. I'm not sure what I would have come up with, but I would have also changed those names as well, because some names can be problematic in terms of like copyright. For example, Pantera is the name of a very famous rock band. Not going to really fly. And Acura is the name of a car company. Not going to really fly. So, so there are things like that. In the case of Pantera and Acura and stuff like that, those are simple copyright problems. Those are cut and dry. Others are more, can be more stylistic changes. If a name, one that always comes to mind is Quinn from Gunvolt 2, whose Japanese name is Oka. Sometimes a name just kind of sounds a little awkward to say for a English speaker, especially maybe for like an anime fan, maybe it wouldn't be, but you kind of have to create this stuff with all users in mind, and not just the subset of people who know Japanese culture or Japanese naming conventions and stuff like that.
Right.
So you kind of got to think of the big picture in terms of stuff like that. As opposed to like stuff that already has English, like for our like you talk about like the special move names, stuff like that. A lot of those are just, again, they're stylistic changes. Some of them I don't, I can use Luminous Avenger as the most recent example, since those are the ones I most recently worked on. Some of them, the ones that are already in English, like let's take Crim for example, Carnival Depth Charge. Does that make sense to you?
Not exactly.
Exactly. So despite the fact that it's in English, Carnival Depth Charge is actually a pun. It's an English name, but it's a Japanese pun. Because Carnival is Kanibaru. Kani is the Japanese word for crab. Haha.
Aha.
So, well, it's like I see what the team was going for. Like that's funny for a Japanese speaker, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense if you're not a Japanese speaker. So
Right.
that's why I changed it to something like, okay, let's make this very Crim-like. So that's how I came up with Exquisite Artillery, because I think that's definitely more something that fits his character that an English speaker can appreciate a lot more. And for example, like Stella's, her Japanese one is Graviton's Scarabiter, which I don't. That was what that means was explained to me. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. I'm like, okay, well, like I again understand you can get away with that stuff in Japanese a lot easier than you can in English.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, well, I need something for this to make sense to an English speaker who reads it. So that's why I changed it to Pandemonium instead. One of the biggest things you have to look out for is, will this make sense? This is already in English. This was probably not written by a native English speaker. So you have to ask yourself, does this make sense? Is this a Japanese play on words? That happens more often than you might think. Things like that. And, take what makes sense for the character or what the move is or whatever's going on. My goal is to always deliver the same feeling that a Japanese speaker would get, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the same words. You know what I mean?
Right. What was this 9's special move name in Japanese?
I forget the kanji used, but it was actually like pronounced as like English words. It was like "shut the world" or something like that. Like kanji like pop up on the screen, but he says like "shut the world."
Yeah. I was kind of disappointed that y'all changed that one because it goes Sawodo, that JoJo reference.
Oh yeah, no, I know. Trust me, I was very much aware of the JoJo thing, but again, like I'm sure for the small number of people who would get the JoJo reference, you'd be like, oh man, JoJo reference, but unfortunately, most people aren't going to get that reference. So I thought Total Blackout was a pretty good choice, simply because, not only does the screen literally go completely black, but blackout curtains are a thing.
Right.
And I was pretty happy with that one. There is another reference in the special move names, but if you don't know what it is, I don't know if I'm going to spoon feed it to you. You can find it.
Oh man, I would have to look at them again. So, I guess
I did. I will admit I did throw a reference into one of those names. If you don't know which one it is, then you have to do a little sleuthing to figure it out, maybe.
Okay, I'll keep an eye out for that. But yeah, there's actually that little thing that's been around since Gunvolt 2 where you actually re-record the lines for the translated special move names. I thought that was pretty cool. What prompted that?
Yeah, no, that's super nice. That was super, super nice to be able to do. Logistically, it just didn't work out for GV1. But, that was something, after I got my feet wet, I was painfully aware of, hey, it'd be really nice if this could match. So, yeah, thankfully, that's something we were able to do. And that's just simply a matter of, making sure, I think some of the first things I localized were those, the weapon names, the move names. Those are some of the first things I did.
Nice.
So the voice actors had enough time to, because, you had to record that stuff well in advance. So making sure that those were done within enough time so the voice actors could do them, with all their other stuff.
Yep. Did you ever consider re-recording the names too?
Thought about it. It's a lot more work.
Oh, I'm sure.
And again, that's something that I think, obviously you may hear a difference, when Lola's like, Akira-kun, if you're an anime person or know Japanese somewhat, obviously that will stand out to you. But
right.
I think your average player who has no knowledge of Japanese, or is not like a big anime head or something like that, wouldn't even know the difference between Akira-kun and, it coming up as like, hey boss,
Yeah.
if you don't know the language, it's all. So like I understand that. I do. But that's a bit of a bigger ask, unfortunately.
Oh, I can imagine because they just come up so often in the script.
Exactly.
So another question about Gunvolt in general. We would talk about Keiji Inafune a little bit throughout this interview. So people were curious, what exactly is Inafune's role in the Gunvolt series?
So Inafune-san, especially for Gunvolt 1, he was kind of like, I believe, I'm trying to remember the exact title he had. I think it was like action supervisor or something like that. Especially with GV1, that was our first self-published title, the first basically going out fully on our own. So I know this was more stuff that I was told, and I wasn't physically there for it. But he worked, he worked with us a lot on, basically kind of as like an advisor, to like, getting his, thoughts and input on like, especially, like the gameplay elements and stuff like that. So he kind of worked as like almost like a supervisor, like a consultant almost, so to speak, in helping us, develop the gameplay systems for GV1, which of course, carried over into GV2 in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Awesome. And this is probably more of a localization question I should ask first, but
sure, it's all good.
Obviously Gunvolt is well known for its Japanese voice acting, but have you ever considered doing dubs for other languages like English?
I've considered it. I think I kind of wish I could have had it for this, but it's definitely something I've been thinking about more and more. Of course, it's very expensive to do all that, so that's something we have to think about as well. But I would like to do. I think I would like to do an English dub going forward if I can. So it's definitely something I didn't really necessarily think about that I really wanted in the beginning, but my thoughts about that have kind of changed over time. And I definitely think it'd be if we can do it. It would be a pretty big undertaking for us working solely out of Japan.
Right.
But if we can make it work, I think it'd be pretty fun to pursue if we can make it work.
Yeah, I know.
So we'll see. Again, I can't make any promises, but it's definitely my thoughts on it have definitely changed over the years, and I would definitely like to give it more consideration going forward.
I know I myself, I love to hear these characters talk in my language. That's awesome, though. So let's actually talk about Luminous Avenger X. Oh yeah. So starting off, what prompted Inti Creates to sort of create a spin-off series for Copen?
Let me see. I'm trying to think of. I wasn't part of the original conversation, but obviously, GV2 came out in 2016, and we definitely wanted a new Gunvolt game, and I definitely think there's a lot of folks here who really, really enjoyed Copen's gameplay that we did in GV2, and I think there's a lot of people on the team who wanted to expand upon that. So I think it made sense, for Copen to kind of have his own game. And so now when you think about it, they actually, between Copen and GV, they actually have basically 1.5 games of their own now.
Yep, that's true.
So now GV and Copen are kind of even, so that's really cool. And, because they're two completely different play styles and two completely different 2D action experiences playing between the two characters. So I definitely think there's a lot of folks here on the Gunvolt team who wanted to see what we could do. We wanted to do more with Copen, and expand upon his gameplay and all that stuff. And while Suda-san forums together, Gunvolt 3. It just kind of worked out that we were able to do Luminous Avenger, and now we kind of have, basically two worlds that kind of coexist now, running kind of parallel to each other. You have the Luminous Avenger, like I said before, you have the Luminous Avenger line and the GV main line. So more Gunvolt world goodness for everybody, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh dear. Yeah, that's awesome though. Like, I really do enjoy Copen's gameplay. I kind of prefer it to GV just a little bit. I just think it's a lot of fun to fly around and zip across the stages.
It's one of those characters I think once you get the hang of, you kind of get. I think a lot of people who first plays Copen aren't really sure what to do with him, and then you play with him for a little bit, and you kind of have that aha moment.
Yeah,
and it all just kind of clicks. And you're like, oh man, this is dope.
Yeah, I was live streaming the game the other day with my friend, and I was kind of teaching him how to play this Copen because this is his very first time playing a Copen game.
Right.
And after a couple minutes, he's like, "Wow, this is fun." Like, yeah. Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mean, like, we take this game to like conventions and stuff, and that's kind of the similar story there as well. You'll see people, the first couple minutes of the demo, they're kind of figuring it all out, and then once it all clicks, by the time they finish the stage, it looks a lot different from how they started. So that's always that progression's always fun to see.
Yep, that's awesome. Okay, let's talk about Copen himself, gameplay-wise, since we were just on that.
Yeah.
I noticed that Copen had a nerf compared to GV2. Namely, if his pervasion ability, he eats up 2 bullets now instead of 1, and then there was the omission of his healing skill. So, what was the thought process of balancing Copen for this game?
I don't know if I would call it a nerf per se, but we didn't want to have the experience be exactly the same as it was in GV2, because then you have nothing new to offer. But Copen now has, while it may not be the same setup as it was in GV2, you also got to keep in mind that he has a whole host of abilities that he can now get, from 3 extra bullets, to abilities that heal him when he uses his, special attack, all kinds of stuff. So I'd say arguably Copen he's much stronger in Ix than he ever was in Gunvolt 2 with all the abilities you can get for him. So I would not call it a nerf. I would think it's just a rethinking of the of just the way you acquire his abilities. And honestly, I think he's more fun to play now than he ever was.
Yeah, you guys did a great job with this gameplay in Luminous Avenger X. But we did notice, like, when we were playing, I know one of my partners on the channel, he was noting how when he was playing, he was losing bullets a lot more often than he did in GV2. So I was like, oh, wow, they did change that.
Yeah. I think it all works out in the end, though.
Yeah. Oh, so in Gunvolt 2, Gunvolt and Copen's music styles were very distinct. Copen had more like a techno-sounding soundtrack. So going into Luminous Avenger X, did you try to keep that sound distinct sound for the soundtrack, or did you try to do something different with it?
That's definitely a question I wish the sound team could answer. They could definitely tell you that more than I could. The sound team, they have their vision. I'll tell you what, we have a pretty big internal sound team, and I think they're always finding ways that they can make the best soundtrack that they possibly can. I really wish I had more to say on that. Unfortunately, I just don't.
Well, maybe another day. So, talk about Gunvolt characters, or rather Luminous Avenger X characters. People have been wondering about Kohaku's design in particular. She mainly is like wearing a bikini with a yellow jacket that seems to have been cut off because of story reasons. So, what was sort of like the thought process that went into designing Kohaku?
Yeah, I know this has been a topic. The character designers have their vision, and I'll put it like this: the character designers have their vision, and they're living in a very kind of destitute situation. They're basically, you got a bunch, she's basically the leader of a group of kids surviving on their own in a world where everything around them is trying to kill them. You take what you can get. Yeah. The character designers have their vision, and they stuck to it.
That they do. Speaking of Kohaku, actually, so we've seen in past Gunvolt games, like Gunvolt 1, we had Gunvolt and GV and Jewel. Gunvolt 2, we had Copen and Midel, and then GV and Jewel again. Now in Luminous Avenger X, we have Copen kind of being like a big brother to Kohaku. So I know it's like we kind of keep going back to this little story trope. So is there any like a particular reason why?
It just, from what I can tell, of course, it just kind of seems to be a central theme to the Gunvolt series. Especially for an action game, I think the Gunvolt series has a lot of like interpersonal character development, especially amongst like the main characters that you don't always really get to see in kind of action games like this. I'm not necessarily sure the deep philosophical reason why, but obviously that is definitely something that is I think resonates with the directors, and I think it's a a trope, whatever you want to call it. I think that just works well for the setting, and I think they definitely have probably more they want to explore with it, so we'll see what happens. But those kind of I personally enjoyed those types of relationships, and especially for like a Copen and a Kohaku, basically kind of like a fates coming together, and seeing how that relationship builds, I always find really charming and interesting.
Oh, definitely, it's very wholesome. So for the rest of these questions, we're actually going to get into some super spoiler territory. So for anyone watching right now, if you don't want any spoilers on Gunvolt Chronicles Luminous Avenger X, just click this timestamp here. I'll put it somewhere in the video, and you can skip to that time if you want to skip these. But for the first question, obviously at the end of the game, it was revealed that it takes place seemingly 100 years after the bad ending of Gunvolt 1, where GV and Jewel die by the hands of Asimov, and then apparently Copen has a cyborg body that he has used to live for all this time. Is all that correct?
Sounds about right to me.
So people have been talking about, is this like a separate timeline or whatever?
Well, as it said, it's they even say in the conversation like, oh, it's been 100 years. Asimov calls Copen out for being a cyborg, all that stuff. So I think your description is pretty accurate. Yeah.
Could you talk about how like maybe that was decided on to set it after 100 years after the first game?
Truthfully, I'm not sure why that was the final decision. That's something only probably the director himself could say. Yeah, sorry.
That's all right. So, speaking of Copen himself, someone was wondering if he is 100% robot now, or was his brain transplanted to a mechanical body, or does he have mostly biological parts?
Again, that wasn't covered in the story, so that's probably something only the director could say if he wanted to. I would say I would leave that up to your imagination, but he's definitely at least part human because he's a cyborg. Cyborg implying
that is true.
That he's not a complete, he's not fully a robot. So as for the balance of how much is robot, how much is human, I would leave that up to your imagination for now, anyway.
Awesome. So, speaking of Copen again, something I noticed when I was playing was the fact that, well, in Gunvolt 2, Copen has been kind of a jerk to other people, like roasting them when he defeats them or whatever. But it seems to mellow out quite a bit in this one, where he actually shows a lot more care and respect for even his enemies sometimes. So, Uh, how did you go, or how did Inti Creates go about writing Copen's personality for his first solo game?
Well, I mean, I think the best thing I can speak for is, just when I was localizing it and seeing all of the, all of the personality, how he's, that sharpness about him has been just kind of dulled over time. And, the way I see it is, when you've been through all that he has been over so much time,
Right.
it's just got to be tiring to keep up that, you know, you know, he had the edge and the spite of a young man, and he may look like one, but he ain't one anymore.
Yep.
So I think he's probably just so tired.
I imagine.
Yeah. So I mean, just if you look in the timeline of Luminous Avenger X, basically Copen's worst fears have come true. He was the one to say, adepts are going to destroy the world, and well, things aren't so great for people like him. And so you can imagine having to fight that for 100 years, how just worn down dude must be after all that time. So, but it's I definitely think that's something that I think fans of Copen, I think I've heard a lot of people claiming for him, like, maybe not be such a jerk to everybody.
I was one of them.
But I think that one of the coolest things about Luminous Avenger is seeing how what can happen to a person like Copen over dealing with all that strife over such a long period of time.
Oh yeah, he's definitely gone through some crazy things over this 100 years.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Oh yes.
He's still a Sundari, though. He's still a Sundari.
He's definitely the biggest Sundari ever.
That credit goes to Andrew, for my localization partner in crime, for Sundari. I was going through the first round of checks I saw. I was like, okay, you did good. I was like, I'm not changing a thing. We're keeping that.
Well, that's great. Just a question off my list. I'm not asked about that. Speaking of the ending as well, at the end of Luminous Avenger X, obviously it turned out Blade was the sister of Kohaku, and she seemed to have broken free of Sumeragi's brainwashing and started to help out Copen and Kohaku. So,
yep.
Is there any chance we might see her as a playable character in the future?
Again, nothing I could confirm or deny. But just as a just from a pure gameplay perspective, someone like Blade would be super fun to play as, I think.
For sure.
With all the different movesets that she has and just being able to use her lightning sword and all that stuff like that, I think it'd be really cool. But yeah, can't confirm or deny anything at this point, but I personally think it would be super dope if we could pull something like that off.
Oh, that'd be awesome, because she could basically be the sort of the comparison to Gunvolt in the mainline games. That could be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So, the last Luminous Avenger X question we have is just, what was your reaction to reading the story for the first time?
So, I had a lot of fun with Copen's interaction with Kohaku and the other Mino kids. Just kind of to see how, like, Copen handles actual interpersonal relationships when he's not being as angry at everything all the time. Obviously, but when he was like talking to stuff, like Mito and stuff like that, he wasn't super edge angry all the time. But just getting to see his more mellowed out self, interact with people that he needs to take care of, or he decided that he needs to take care of, was really fun. Lola is always a pleasure to she's more on my energy, so she's a lot more fun to like localize and just bring to life, so to speak. I love Lola, especially I love Lola's interactions with Kohaku and the kids. Those are some of my favorites. But I will say when when I got to I was doing my first round of edits, and I got to the you know the scene when you meet Asimov, uh, where he's talking about GV and Jewel, and then just the like the image pops up of just them just lying there. I was like, oh boy, this is gonna cause some trauma. Oh crap.
Oh boy, you did it.
Like literally, I saw that, and my first thought was like, ah, crap.
It's like, oh, we're doing this.
Be some very, very, very sad Gunvolt fan out there.
Oh yeah.
But it is what it is, But yeah, no, definitely when I first saw it, I was just like, oh man. Not for my sake, but for us, like, feelings are gonna be felt about this.
Oh yeah. I think and most people were just shocked. Like, wait, what? What happened?
Yep, and then like there's like him talking about it and then seeing it. So I was like, ah, shit. This is gonna be a doozy. Okay, well, yep.
Do you want to comment at all about like your reaction to the truth about the butterfly effect?
Yeah, that was another one. I was just like, whew, man, like, but it's despite. I really like how it all played out because, despite all the, desperate times that, the Minos were living in, I don't think it all really hits home until you get to that point. Like, you see the strife that they go through, and you feel that to a degree, and then you get to, butterfly effect, and then Asimov, and then it all really just, drills it all in. At the end there, so I thought that was really well timed.
Yeah, like when you get to the butterfly effect fight, things just go from 0 to 100 so quick.
No, they really do, and like the stuff on the screen, like the please kill me. I was like,
my god,
damn! Like just writing that all out, I was just like, oof, okay.
Oh, okay, game.
Gonna make some people sad. Here we go. All right.
To quote one of my friends, Inti Creates needs to calm down.
Yeah, I mean, that's all Ty. That's all Ty. So that's his brainchild, literally and figuratively. So
hats off to him. Oh man,
credit goes to him for that one.
Yeah, it certainly kept us on the edge of our seats there.
That's been accomplished as far as I'm concerned.
Yep, that's for sure. So, do you want to move on to another game I really love, Blaster Master 02?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm sure everyone was so shocked when that Nintendo Indie Direct happened. They were like, hey, by the way, a 02 sequel not only exists, but it's available today.
Yep.
And I'm just wondering, how did y'all manage to keep that secret for so long, and what prompted you to make a sequel unannounced?
Well, we always want to do a sequel. I mean, the story of Blaster Master 0 was not over with the first game, and there's definitely more that the team wanted to do. So when we got the green light to make a second one, I was thrilled because the BMZ games are some of my favorite games that we've ever done. 2 especially. I think 2 is one of our best games we've ever made. Just my personal opinion. But for I'm losing my train of thought here for a second. As for the way the release and how it was released, if you can't keep a secret, you won't keep a job.
Yeah, that's for sure.
In all seriousness, NDAs are or non-disclosure agreements. They are very serious. And not honoring those is a pretty humongous violation. And you can ruin a lot of things by not protecting NDAs. So it's just something you got to do. You got to learn how to if if you're bad at keeping secrets, if you're gonna work in a job like this, you better figure it out.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
Like uh, even my closest friends, significant other, they didn't know anything about BMZ2 or any of like the X spoilers. Nothing. You have to
Hmm.
gotta you gotta keep that close to the chest. But
Right.
but it was really fun to work with Nintendo and to do the surprise release or shadow drop as it is called sometimes. Yeah, that was a fun ride.
I bet it was. So I know a lot of people, myself included, were just so hyped about that. That was a really good surprise.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's the goal. So I'm glad it worked.
Talk about Blaster Master Zero in general. Then, did Sunsoft end up approaching you about the game, or did you approach them, or how did you end up working on Blaster Master?
So we had we had contact with the folks at Sunsoft for a long time. They're based out of Nagoya, and we have a branch office in Nagoya as well. So we've interacted with the folks at Sunsoft for a long time, and we had talked to them, and they were looking to revive one of their old IPs. And I love telling this story because it's one of my favorite industry stories.
Oh boy.
Sorry about that. I don't know what that was. But yeah, so it's kind of one of my favorite industry stories because it's just such a right place at right time sort of thing. How this all kind of happened was at E3 2015. This was my first E3. Growing up reading about E3 and like GamePro and Electronic Gaming Monthly and stuff like that, it's kind of like the promised land. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I was so psyched to be at my first E3. Our first day goes super well, and because we had like meetings and like interviews and stuff planned up for the whole show. I come back from the first day, and I get back to my room and like my back's kind of sore, but I don't really think much of it. And I go to bed and I wake up the next morning, get ready to start my day, and I could barely move.
Oh.
It felt like someone took a dagger and just jammed it right in my lower back. That's how much pain I was in that morning.
Oh no.
Literally, I was helpless. Basically, couldn't move, couldn't get up. It was a bad day. Let's put it that way. So all the plans we had for the day, because I'm there with Aizu-san, doing, like I said, doing meetings and interviews and stuff, which are all in English, so I need to be there to interpret for him, and
Right.
which I can no longer do. Considering I was a helpless sad sack in bed with the worst pain I've ever been in my entire life, up to that point and since. So while I'm just there, helplessly lying in bed all day, he's just, he's at the con center, just kind of walking around, doing his thing, and he bumps into a guy he knows from Sunsoft, who was he was trying to get a meeting set up with Nintendo about, like I said, reviving one of their IPs, and so Aizu literally, but he couldn't get into the hall where Nintendo was for whatever reason. So Aizu literally went and tracked one of our acquaintances down, had him help the guy from Sunsoft get in and talk with Nintendo, and so Aizu spots them later having a meeting, at E3, and he just kind of sees what's going on. He's like, the meeting maybe isn't going so well. It doesn't look like there's a whole lot happening. So Aizu-san literally joins up to the meeting that they're having, and like I said, they're trying to pitch their new IP, and maybe like I said, it wasn't going as well as it could. And Nintendo was like, basically it went like, well, what if Inti Creates did this? Then what do you think? And Nintendo's like, yeah, we're on board with that. Yeah, let's do that. That sounds great. And that's how Blaster Master Zero came to be. So basically, the moral of the story is, if I did not destroy my back, and I just saw not happen to bump into the guy from Sunsoft because he was free because I destroyed my back, Blaster Master Zero probably wouldn't exist.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for taking one for the team there.
Yeah, that's one way to birth a franchise, I guess. You know. Yeah, I later learned that I horribly pinched the sciatica nerve in my lower back, and yeah, it was a bad time.
Oh, I feel so bad about that, but at least it led to a great game.
You know, that's the story, right? It's like, man, that really sucks, but
But
always follow with that but, which is fine. No, it's all good. I'm glad it all
yeah,
it all worked out in the end.
gotta look at the positives.
The horrific pain was worth it.
Yep. So, speaking of the sequel, then, obviously, with the first game, we had the EX character DLCs, which are a lot of fun. We had a lot of different characters show up, even
Yes, we did.
like Shantae or Shovel Knight and all that. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Mm-hmm. So, could we expect any DLC for Blaster Master Zero 2, like maybe the Metal Attacker pilots being playable?
Again, I hate having to say this all the time. It's not something I can neither confirm nor deny.
Of course.
That's unfortunately, it's just that's how NDAs work. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I would love to do that. I think one of the best things that we ever did with Blaster Master Zero 1 was the EX character DLC.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it breathed a lot of new life into the game. You know, it was an absolute blast to be able to work with, you know, Way Forward and Yacht Club Games to do Shantae and Shovel Knight. You know, so as just someone who loves BMZ2, I certainly would love to see that. You know, me, I'm very much in. I'm generally in like I feel the same things you guys do. Like I would love to do the thing,
Right.
but I can never promise that we can always do the thing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But you know, I would love to. Just have to see what happens.
Hopefully one day. So, getting to the game itself, then, one of the things people might notice right off the bat when you start the game is that Jason's got some balancing going on with his weapon setup and everything. Obviously, the gun isn't as overpowered as before. It's changed quite significantly. But you did add the counter mechanic, which was really flashy. I really like that. So, how'd you...
Super anime, and I love it.
Yeah, it's awesome. How'd you go about kind of balancing Jason's gameplay, or just make it in general for BMZ2?
Well, I definitely think one of the biggest kind of consistent comments that we got about BMZ1 was that a lot of people thought it was too easy. So which is one of the reasons why we have stuff like Destroyer mode in BMZ1. It's like, oh, you think it's easy? Well, try this on for size, you know.
Yeah, that was...
you know, but definitely, you know, it's definitely, you know, pretty common feedback that we got about BMZ1. So I think that the team, you know, definitely took a long, hard look at, you know, the weapons and thought, you know, try to figure out a way we could better balance everything, you know, better weapon balance, you know, maybe not necessarily have the most powerful gun just completely melt anything it touches.
Right.
But yeah, no, I definitely think we did a much better job with balancing and difficulty and stuff like that in BMZ2 for sure.
Yeah, because you really do have to use the counter mechanic to survive, it seems like.
Oh, totally. No, there are some enemies that will literally just eat you alive if you.
Yep.
I always like those turret guns that you see, and like you can just like they're just like constantly shoot at you, and if you don't utilize the blast counter, you're gonna have a really, 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 really bad time with those things. But you know, if you utilize the blast counter, you absolutely shred them. So it's kind of like feast and famine. So yeah, definitely. No, the blast counter was a really fun mechanic, and mastering that, I think makes it the you know, the dungeon gameplay way more fun.
Yeah.
And more just like you said, flashy and more just kind of intense.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the challenge in BMZ2. Everything, you had to be on your toes a lot more than you had to do in the original. And the counter mechanic just added more to it and made it more in depth. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, the blast counter was one of my, if not my favorite addition to BMZ2 for sure.
Me too. So speaking of a particular level, there's this one planetoid level. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but
I think I read which one you're talking about, but
yeah,
please continue.
It's the one where you gotta get on foot as Jason, jump from ladder to ladder with
Ladder hill.
some obstacles along the way. I know me and pretty much everyone that played the level had so much trouble with it.
Yeah, that's kind of the general consensus that we got. Yeah, I couldn't tell you how many tweets I saw that were like, "Wow, BMZ2 is great," but to hell with that planetoid, man.
Yeah, I know. So I was just wondering, like when Inti Creates was developing this game, did you have like a similar experience with it, or was just you just decided to do that just because?
I think that's just something the team wanted to do, but just because it's fun. But I think that was something the team wanted to do. It's a pretty tough challenge. We wanted to have that, and but I definitely think it got to a point where like maybe it was tougher than they had thought it was going to be for most people.
Right.
So that's why in one of the patches we kind of toned it down a little bit.
Oh really?
Yeah. There was a patch that we toned it down a little bit.
That's good.
I forget which patch it was. If you look at the patch notes for BMZ2, they're on the website. You can see it there. But it was decided that okay, maybe we should go easy on them.
Actually, it makes sense. I think because when I first played the game, it was super hard, and then I did it on stream later. It was like, this enemy isn't really being as aggressive as it was before.
Yeah. That enemy was definitely a point of frustration for some people, for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's good that that's been tightened up a bit.
Yeah.
And speaking of the new metal attacker pilots in the game, what was kind of some of the inspiration creating these new characters for Jason to interact with?
I definitely think one of the biggest things that people wanted to see was expanding on the world and introducing a whole new cast of characters. Because there's, BMZ1 was pretty much just Jason, Eve, and Fred, really.
Yeah.
So having being able to expand to a whole new cast of characters was really fun. Now, if you are a seasoned Sunsoft fan, you may recognize some of these characters.
Oh, nice.
All these characters are throwbacks in some way, direct or indirect, to other Sunsoft characters.
Oh man, that's so cool.
Yeah, like Ganbei and Tae are from a series called Ikki, which never came out in the U.S. or the West rather. But that was like a Famicom/arcade game. And was originally like novelized later on, which is where Ganbei and Ganbei's in the original game, and that's where like the most recent versions of Ganbei and Tae come from, where you kind of see them in BMZ2. There are other references to other characters. Like I don't want to spoon feed you all the references because that's no fun. But
right,
a lot of the new characters, not all of them, but a lot of the new characters have kind of throwbacks or tie-ins to other Sunsoft games or characters.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the new characters because BMZ1, like you said, is just the main characters, so the world really did feel isolated because you felt kind of alone. But in the sequel, there's more characters and they help you out along the way. And
yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's awesome. There's one particular MA pilot, though, that caught everyone's attention. Obviously, the Melon Woman, Kana. Do you have any comments as to, like, what was the thought process behind designing her?
Well, I definitely heard she's really popular on the internet. To put it lightly.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, she was definitely more popular than I imagined she would be. Yeah, Twitter was an interesting place to be in Blaster Master Zero world when that game came out.
That's for
That's for
sure.
sure. Uh, but I had actually asked. Um, I don't. He kind of told me this in. I don't know if it's something he wants me to tell everybody, but basically, I can tell you that our character designer's vision for Kana definitely came true. Put it that way. Um, that's all I will say on that matter. But she's far and away the most popular character in the game. Uh, you know, taking her crazy appearance aside, she's just a fun character too.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
she's just really goofy and weird. So she was really fun to localize just because of that. Uh, and just
Oh
that
my
that that
god.
whole that whole planet is just weird.
Oh
The
yeah, I love
like
the I love the plan where you jump on this flower
yep,
and then this giant two legs just come out and
yep,
start walking.
the little toe
The
moving.
little
Yeah,
toes.
right. No, that's great. That's why
Oh my
that's like
god.
I love how weird everything about that planet is, including Kana, especially Kana. Um, yes, but yeah, as far as her character design and goals, all I can really say is mission accomplished.
Yeah, we get it. Melons. That's all I'll say about that. So the last BMZ2 question I have is at the end of the game, Eve meets Elfie, who I was kind of researching Blaster Master Blasting again for the PS1.
Mhm.
Apparently, she and Roddy, who was also mentioned, ended up being Jason and Eve's children in the old canon. I was just wondering, like, if that's still the case in the Zero continuity, and is there any chance we'll see them again?
Um, I'm honestly not sure. But Zero is kind of pulls pieces from like if you look at the story for like BMZ1 for example, BMZ1 basically takes parts of the lore from it basically borrows it from everything from the original Blaster Master NES version to the Famicom Metafight version, and even the Worlds of Power Blaster Master novel that was written back in the day. And it kind of borrows from all of those things and kind of basically the Zero series is basically a retelling of the story of Blaster Master, basically from the ground up, uh, or from zero. Ha ha ha. So, um, so yeah, obviously, Elfie and Roddy were present characters in Blasting Again, and then they have the connection to Jason and Eve. If there's a Blaster Master 03, will we see them again? Will there be a connection? I couldn't tell you for sure one way or the other. Simply because this is kind of a retelling of the story, and
Right.
BMZ2 is kind of a direct sequel to the events of BMZ1,
Hmm.
which was essentially a new take on the whole story, on the whole world and lore. So it's really hard to say, if we do a 3, will Elfie and Roddy or any other characters be presented in this way or that way? You know what I mean?
Right. It was pretty cool to see him again, though. Even though I
Yeah.
actually, was like I played a game and I saw the characters. I'm like, wait, who are these people? And I just happened to be looking up some Blaster Master games and I saw their descriptions. Like, oh, that's really interesting. Hopefully we'll see him again.
Yeah. No, there's definitely some deep cuts in the BMZ games for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for Blaster Master Zero 2. There's some other miscellaneous questions. The first one being, how do you feel about the Mighty Number 9 series?
I mean, I love the characters. I think the Beck and the Mighty Numbers are really fun, well-designed characters. Um, I mean, I don't really need to go in about the ups and downs of the release of Mighty Number 9. I think it's something
Mm-hmm.
everybody knows at this point.
You're right.
Uh, uh, but for me, I get this question a lot, and I'm always, um, yeah, I mean, which is fair.
Right.
It is a topic that was very prevalent for a long time, so I get that. I don't. I think there's a lot of just unfortunate circumstances that happened. I don't think the game gets a really bad rap, and I think it's not all deserved. No
Yeah.
game's perfect. I definitely think the game just uh, it's honestly it's really hard to navigate those waters, so to speak.
That's for sure.
But I definitely would say if you've never played Mighty Number Nine before, give the game a try and form your own opinions on it based on the merits of its gameplay.
I agree.
Um, and like I said, I love the characters and the story that was made. So like being able to work with those characters again in like Mighty Gunvolt Burst was honestly a really big treat. We helped make these characters. We love those characters. Especially our director for Mighty Gunvolt Burst really loved the characters and really wanted them to uh, really want to bring them back in another way that Mighty Number. I'm sorry, not Mighty Number. Mighty Gunvolt Burst is something that's totally our own game that we can do our way. So that was really fun to be able to not have as many cooks in the kitchen and being able to just focus on our own title with these characters, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, I encourage anybody who has never played Mighty Number Nine before and is thinking of checking it out to give the game a try and form your own opinions. That's about all I can
Yeah, I
really say on the
agree.
matter.
I really do enjoy the My Number 9 characters too, and I loved how they were presented in Mighty Gumball Burst. I thought y'all did a really good job with that.
Thanks.
Yeah, Mighty Number 9 is, it's an okay game, but I think people were like really down on it because of the Kickstarter more than the game itself. That's just really unfortunate circumstances. So the next one is about Dragon Mark for Death, which also came out this year. What can we expect to see from the game in terms of like future updates?
Yeah, so we talked about these a few months ago, and there were unfortunately not coming out as quickly as we had originally hoped, but we still are working on big updates for Dragon Mark for Death that are still coming with new characters, new weapons, all kinds of new stuff. We still have, believe it or not, we still have some really big new updates coming for Dragon Mark for Death. So if you maybe haven't played the game in a while or are looking to get into it, we still have more that we're doing. So all I can say is, like I said, I know we talked about the new characters. I know we talked about the new weapon classes, and those are coming soon. And I think, DMFD players, whether you are just starting out or haven't picked it up in a while, or if you're still playing regularly, I definitely think you'll have a lot of new stuff to enjoy. So I definitely hope that people either come back to the game or give it a try for the first time, because we have a lot of new cool stuff on the horizon.
Yeah, I really appreciate your dedication to that game and updating all the time. It's really cool to see all the new stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's one of our biggest games ever, if not our biggest game ever.
Oh
So
yeah.
there's a lot that the team wanted to do with it. But making we're a small team and making stuff for an action RPG takes a lot of time. And
hmm
but we're doing what we can. And again, we had originally thought these updates would be coming a bit sooner than they are, but they are still being worked on and they are still coming. So if anybody had any doubts, don't worry, they will be there, and I will have more information to share on those as soon as I can make it available. So definitely, stay tuned to our social media and all that jazz, because we'll definitely have more to talk about in the near future for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Speaking of, actually, Dragon Mark for Death is like an online co-op game, which Inti
Yeah.
Creates hasn't done too much before. Am I correct?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a bit, out of our wheelhouse, so to speak. Just because we haven't really done it all that often before, but it was, it's fun. It's fun to be able to,
Yeah.
play that. That's a game. Dragon Mark for Death, I think, definitely shines brightest when you have a full group of people.
Oh, for sure.
So I definitely like the fact that we were able to make that happen a lot easier. You don't always have to be in the same room to do that. So I'm glad we were able to make that work.
Is online games something Inti Creates might want to explore more in the future, perhaps?
I think it really just depends on the title. If it makes sense for the title, like for Dragon Mark for Death, then I'm sure it's something we will consider. But yeah, I think that really is for a really just kind of goes on a title by title basis.
That makes sense. And I only really have two more questions here.
Sure.
I do have to apologize for this first one because it's not something I remember to put on the list when I send it to you.
It's
So
okay.
you can tell me
If I
if you
can't answer,
can't.
I can't answer. If I can, I can.
Yeah, right. So this is actually about Luminous Avenger X.
Sure.
There is those zeros and ones that appear, the binary code for Blade's dialogue when the Berserk trigger is well triggered.
Yeah.
And people have been like trying to translate it. If you add up the numbers and translate that, you get kill, 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 which I imagine is the intended message for that. But people have also got, by just throwing it into a binary generator outright, they got ZX 3 times. So people have been wondering if that's like an intentional nod or something's going on with that, or is it just kill, kill, kill?
Uh, I I I think the answer should be pretty obvious.
Right. Yeah.
Berserk trigger. Uh, I think it's cool that people, went the extra mile to kind of figure out what that meant. So good on you. But if you had to guess, is this character who is going to be Berserk and trying to actively murder you, saying kill, 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 or ZX, ZX, ZX? What would you say?
Well, when this first came out, people started messaging me on Twitter. It was like, hey, look, it says ZX, ZX, ZX. And then someone else was like, guys, it says kill, kill, kill. I'm like, yeah, I agree with that. Like, I'm pretty sure it says kill, kill, kill. And people are like, no.
Yeah, I'm not going to be a buzzkill. People can think whatever they want,
Yeah.
but just on a common sense perspective, I encourage you to look at it in that sense.
Right. The people
Character going crazy, trying to murder you.
Right.
Which one do you think they're saying?
Right. People are like, ShadowRock, you can't say that's not a coincidence. Well, it might be.
Very well, maybe. Who knows?
Maybe. I mean, if you read her dialogue, it's just kill, 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 kill Copen, whatever. It's like, yeah,
Yep.
that's probably it.
It's all about that killing. So
yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming out and answering all these questions. So
no problem. It's fun. I
Yeah.
love doing interviews. I have a lot of fun with these, so no trouble for me.
Do you have anything you want to say to all the Inti Creates fans out there before we end off?
Well, I mean, honestly, first and foremost, just thanks to everybody for your continued support of our games. It's an honor to be able to, be the window to all you folks and, hear all your, see you get hype, hear your comments, answer your questions, and just kind of be able to be a positive force in your lives. To be able to create something, you folks enjoy is a real pleasure and a real honor. I have a lot of fun, like I said, being your go-to guy for Inti Creates. Our fan base, and I'm sure every company says this, but I really mean it. Our fan base is amazing. It's always super positive and supportive. And as somebody who, like I said, who's the window to all that, y'all make my job so much more fun and so much easier by just having a greater sense of community and camaraderie with each other. My goal is always to make the best games we possibly can, give you the best localizations I can. I know I wear a lot of hats, so I do my best.
Mm-hmm.
I do my best, but I really appreciate all of your support. I know there's a lot more games out there for you to play than there probably ever has been. And it really means a lot that, you guys are still choosing ours. So thank you for that. Spread the word. People who like these kind of games, spread the word. It's, like I said, there's a lot of games out there nowadays, and any support, we don't have, $10 million marketing budgets or anything like that. So,
Right.
any support that we can get is always super appreciated. And, folks like you, ShadowRock, and, people who are making content about our games, it really means a lot to us. And we really thank you guys, for bringing community together and, keeping fans excited and just, giving people a fan base where they feel like they can belong. That's super, super important for a lot of people. It was for me when I was growing up and trying to make friends online and stuff like that. So, I'm sure it is to a lot of y'all too. So keep doing your good stuff. And thank you again for supporting our games. And we have some pretty dang cool stuff in the pipeline, as we always do. So all I can say is I hope you continue to enjoy Ix and all of our other games, and that you'll be excited about what we have in store coming soon. So yeah, there you go.
I know I can speak on behalf of the fans when I say we really appreciate what you do, Inti Creates, and all the Inti Creates staff as well, for making these amazing games. You guys have really been killing it in recent years.
Thanks.
And it's just really cool to see, and we're very excited to see what Inti Creates does next.
Well, thanks, man. We got some cool stuff coming up. Can't tell you what it is yet, but it's going to be cool. That's all I can tell you. I'm very excited about these, for sure.
All right. Thank you so much, Matt, for talking about me, about Inti Creates and all that.
My pleasure. Feel free to hit me up again in the future, and like I said, keep doing your thing, keep that Inti love going, and well, for me, I'm about to go get lunch.
All right, so it's a good time to end off. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and for more on Inti Creates and other things Mega Man, stay tuned to ShadowRockZX and play Inti Creates games. They're awesome. So, with that said, until next time, folks, rock on. Have a great day.